Step into a world where history lives on every page at the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair, the oldest and largest event of its kind in the Southeast. Join us March 7th and 8th, 2026, at the Coliseum in downtown St. Petersburg, and discover rare books, treasured manuscripts, and timeless stories waiting to be found. Visit FloridaAntiquarianBookFair.com for details, and follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube for exclusive updates. Florida Antiquarian Book Fair. Let freedom read.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rare Book Cafe, the Coffee Break Edition. I'm Linn with the Ridge Books in Calhoun, Georgia, and my co-host today is Richard Mori with Mori Rare Books of Nashua, New Hampshire. Good morning, good afternoon, or whatever time of day it is, Richard.
It's always morning someplace, Lee.
It's always morning somewhere. It's always 5 o'clock somewhere, too. And we have a very special guest today with us today. And I'm going to let Richard introduce him and tell why Richard and I are especially so excited to have him with us. Richard?
Well, good morning, everyone. And Lee, we missed you, I want to say. I'm glad to see you are well and better.
But you and Mike did a great job last week. You really did.
Well, and I have to say, I think I made just a little blunder we're going to correct today when we talk with Edward. Although I'm going to blame it on Mike because I did not know that you would be participating in the Atlanta show, which we're going to talk about. And having introduced ourselves to the Atlanta show, let me introduce Edward Lemon, half of the Even Edward Lemon show productions called Fine Book Fairs. Welcome, Ed.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Lee. It's a great pleasure to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to have you and to see you. I mean, you guys are world travelers. Although I understand you didn't do some traveling this winter like you normally do, but you guys are bouncing around all the time. I follow you a little bit on Facebook, and I'm never surprised as to where you're going to be next, but always enjoy finding out. So let's start from the beginning, Edward, because you guys have been at this now a couple of years. You've got some wonderful successes under your belt. But how did all this start, getting into the show business? Because that is not your business, if I'm correct.
Not my day job. I'm a professor. That's my day job. But we live in Washington, D.C., and we were members of a club in Georgetown that occupied a kind of federal era tavern dating back to 1796. Many of the founding fathers used to go there and drink, and it was a very historic building. And so we wanted to raise money for that building. This was back in 2022, and we thought. We were buying a lot of books at the time. We're still book collectors. We thought, why not organize a rare book fair? Of course, there'd been the long-running fair over the river in Roslyn in DC at the Holiday Inn, but the Holiday Inn had been torn down. COVID had happened, of course, and the promoter had said she didn't want to do it anymore. And so we saw a gap in the market and we organized a rare book fair. We didn't really know what we were doing. But we were successful enough that led us to do more fairs, and we did Philadelphia next, which is I think the first fair where we hosted you, Richard.
Yes. Yeah.
And subsequently have expanded throughout the country, and in 2026 going international, going to our first events in Canada and the UK. So
Yeah, you
yeah,
guys
it's been
are
very fun.
you have raised the bar on being a show promoter, I have to say, and being a show promoter myself, I'm aware of what that bar has been. But really, what's you brought a whole different flair to this, haven't you?
Well, I think we came at it as most promoters like yourself are book dealers, right? And I think, book dealers, of course, are the bread and butter of book fairs, right? If we don't have a good set of dealers like yourselves doing our fairs, offering great material, then of course we wouldn't have fairs in the first place. But we also have to think of the public, and we came at it really from the perspective of what would we, as book buyers, as book collectors, as people who are slightly on the younger side in the world of book collecting, want from an event, and so in our first fair in Georgetown, we offered, live music, drinks, had a kind of big opening party, which is something we, have continued to do. We tried to make it as accessible and friendly as possible to try and bring in new audiences. We do a lot of promotion on social media that really brings in, younger people and tries to instill the love of book collecting in them.
Well, and in fact, you also, if I'm not mistaken, I know I'm not mistaken, it's you've brought in a whole new concept of venues, and I have to say that Philadelphia show, I never felt as well treated as a book dealer as you folks treated the book dealers that we ate at these most wonderful private clubs, places in Philadelphia. And I'd been in Philadelphia before; it wasn't my first rodeo there, and I got in places I didn't even know existed in Philadelphia. So tell us a little bit more about that angle.
Yeah, I think we wanted, to bring book fairs to venues that we thought complemented the rare books, maps, prints, ephemera that's on offer, right? So we started in this Federal Tavern in Georgetown, and then we did, a historic church in Philadelphia. We've done it at various private members clubs around the country. We've now moved the DC Fair to the University Club, which is right down on 16th Street, very near to the White House. We've done events at the Columbia Club, which is right in the center of Indianapolis. The Saturn Club in Buffalo. So, we try and put the books into venues that we think complement them. And by having them in these kind of venues, I think venues often that offer accommodation for the dealers as well as kind of food and beverage for the public, we feel that kind of brings a more friendly vibe. And I think our fairs, we've also, overall, most of our fairs have 20 to 30 dealers, including the upcoming Atlanta fair. We try and have our fairs be accessible, when compared to some of the other bigger fairs that can be quite intimidating for newcomers.
So what can you offer Lee? This is going to be her first event with you. I'm an old timer now. I've done 3 or 4 of your shows, and I did the University
At
Club.
least, at least. I think you're probably 8 or 9 of our fairs by now, Richard.
I'm not even trying. I mean, the University Club. I mean, I'm a little guy from northern New Hampshire. The University Club was, for me, over the top. It was just a wonderful, and I even jumped in and stayed at the University Club, which was just a wonderful experience. The way that staff in the house treated us there was just phenomenal. They could not have been more inviting. The then last year we were at the Grand Central Station. Who has ever heard of a book show at Grand
First
Central
and
Station?
last.
First and last.
First and
But what?
last.
But
Congrats.
and I, from personal knowledge, I know it was an experience to remember. But in fact, the concept of doing books in Grand Central Station, I had to do that show just because I knew it was so unique and so special. But give Lee a little bit of an insight
Well, and I'm
what.
also excited about being in Oglethorpe because back in starting, say, about, oh gosh, 2003 or 04, the Georgia Antiquarian Booksellers Association fairs were at Oglethorpe in a basement
Mhm.
that had one door
Yeah.
we would take turns setting up from, and there was no parking for people who came. They had trouble finding us. They were successful shows, and we were there for several years. But this is going to be a whole different, and Oglethorpe is a beautiful campus. I've been to theater productions and things there, and it's a beautiful campus, but I have not been in this building, and I'm really excited about how different it's going to be in this facility than it was in our cozy little basement for so many years.
Sure. Yeah, no, of course, as we were planning a fair in Atlanta, this is our first fair in Atlanta. We'd heard of the kind of different fairs that had taken place in the past in Atlanta. My wife's mother lives in Atlanta, actually walking distance from Oglethorpe University. So it's kind of important to us to try and do something in her hometown. And Eve's mother is a book collector, and she kind of passed her book collecting genes down to Eve, my wife, and the director of Fine Book Fairs. And, she used to go and her mother and go to these fairs and tell us about what worked, what didn't work. We'd heard lots of things from different dealers. And so we thought Oglethorpe University was a perfect venue to return to. The new space we're in is being constructed in the past few years. It's a big kind of auditorium, glass all on one side. The fair will be from February 27th to March 1st. So hopefully we have some winter sun coming in through those very large windows. And it's a nice, beautiful space over 2 different levels. We think it's great. It has parking. And we'll do our usual format of having an opening night on the Friday evening with drinks and maybe some live music, and then we'll transition into Saturday and Sunday.
Yes, we're all in favor of these Friday night events.
Yeah, well, I think we thought, and especially as younger people, the dealers. They're often very excited about the idea of libations and some snacks, but obviously the public as well, especially younger people, not just younger people, if you come to something on a Friday evening, it can be quite tempting. It can tempt you in by having the offer of some drinks whilst you're browsing the books, making it into more of an event.
Yeah.
Just don't spill on the books.
I do give you a little warning.
Right, exactly.
Edward. Yeah, I do give you a little warning, Edward. The Atlanta dealers, Lee may be the exception here.
Oh, Lee is not the exception.
have,
Alan.
have a reputation around libations. They do enjoy. Matter of fact, I think one of them has been accused of having a hollow leg.
Well, we are similarly inclined. I'm British after all, and in this case, I think we're the ones providing the alcohol rather than an external caterer. So that makes it a lot easier for us to be more generous with the pours.
Oh.
So
well, that'll go over big. I do want to say one thing, because I think this is really an important point, Edward. And I have personally provided this comment to you and Eve over the years. You do a phenomenal job, and that's not an over exaggeration, of bringing the public to these events. And what's really important, and this is what I think people need to also hear, you have wonderful dealers. I mean, some of the best of the ABA dealers at some of the shows you've had, the Harringtons and the Cummings books, some of the finest booksellers in the world at your events. But you've also had dealers, and I'm going to use myself as the example, who's not and Lee, but I'm not an ABA member. I do have, I think, a nice assortment of books, but I certainly don't sell books at the same pistache level as a Cummings or a Harrington, although I have sold books to those gentlemen who then turn around and resell them.
Much higher prices, yes.
I'm guessing at a higher price. So it's a nice mix of dealers, in my opinion, because we have a variety of sales points. If you want to spend $10,000 or $20,000 on a book, there will be books there that will fall into that category and higher. But if you want to spend $25 or $50 or $100, those books are going to be there as well. Am I correct?
I know it's correct.
Sure. No, exactly. And that's what we tell.
If you see the wooden box behind me, that is my first Atlanta box that I put together, and it is Georgia Regional Writers. And Richard and I have talked a lot at various times about regional writers, some of which are long forgotten, some of which are much more contemporary. But people in Georgia buy Georgia. People in Florida don't buy Florida. but people in Georgia, my experience over 20 years has been that Georgia material is sought after.
Yeah.
We have a strong sense of history in Georgia, and we have major writers, certainly people like Flannery O'Connor and Carson McCullers and things, but we also have a lot
Margaret
of
Mitchell.
regional writers. And I'm planning to bring, as part of what I bring, some of those.
Yeah. I'm going to offer just a small correction,
Yeah.
mainly. I sell a lot of Florida material in Florida.
Well, I'm glad you do, because I
but so I would just, I mean,
I'm
the right
delighted
stuff.
to hear that
Yeah.
somebody does.
Yeah, no. Actually, I say that about Vermont. I've never been able to sell books about Vermont to Vermonters. I sell Maine books, I sell New Hampshire, I sell New York, I sell Massachusetts. But can I sell a Vermont book? Never have. But I also want to show you this. I just picked this up. You know what this is, don't you?
Sure.
Okay. And why is this book importantly?
Well, it's
Because
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter, Rosalind Carter's wife, is mentioned as an honorary member in the beginning of the book, but also in the recipes, you will find
Sure.
many Carter family members actually who
Yes.
provide recipes to this book. 1977, Plains, Georgia. Just picked this up this week.
When Jason
speaking-
Carter was born, that's one of Jimmy's grandsons.
Mhm.
His mother was from Calhoun, and there was a baby viewing here in Calhoun to meet baby Jason at a lady's house here, and that Rosalind, one of his grandmothers, and Langford, his other grandmother, both attended. And we had just moved back to Calhoun from Columbia at that point, and I was new to Calhoun, and I was really, kind of feeling, but I had kind of a mentor who saw that I got invited to things. And so that was my first introduction to members of the Carter family, was to see baby Jason, who was about 5 months old at the time.
You were going to say something, Edward.
I was going to say, there are many presidents who have connections to Georgia, and they include Teddy Roosevelt, and we actually have his great-great-grandson coming and speaking, because his great-great-great-grandmother, the mother of Teddy Roosevelt, was Mittie Bullock, who grew up in Roswell, Georgia, right? Her house is still there, and so he's going to talk about Bullock Hall, exactly, and so he's going to talk about the Atlanta area roots of the Roosevelt family at the fair, and then subsequently just near Bullock Hall at Roswell River Landing. So, we like to bring in speakers and have books and other material that are related to the area, related to the place that we are, where the fair's taking place.
Yeah, and the only bad thing about this is that it's going to be very difficult for those of us who are exhibitors to go hear Kermit Roosevelt.
That is true, but we'll bring him by your booth.
Being hard to do.
He'll be there all weekend.
And his topic sounds very interesting as well.
Yes, especially with America 250, which of course our fairs this year, where we're going to be kind of plugging into, like many other organizations.
So just quickly, Edward, I know people can go to the website, findfairs.com, but also tell us quickly maybe some of the people who are going to be there.
Well, we have a long list of different exhibitors, people coming from as far as New York, but also many more local people like yourself, of course, Lee. So Ridge Rare Books will be represented. Obviously, Richard, you'll be joining us. We have other local dealers like Ken Mallory, who will be joining us, Mike Cotter of Back in Time Rare Books, of Cliff Grobert, of course, of Old New York Bookshop, and Crow Hop Rare Books, all kind of it from the Georgia, Florida area. We have Blind Horse Books. We have a long list of dealers. We have 22 dealers who are coming to the fair, but really bringing all sorts of different material. And as you said, there'll be material from $10, $20 up to, $10,000 plus. We have dealers who specialize in art books, dealers who specialize in Georgia-related material, ephemera, dealers who deal in historic documents, literature, travel. There'll be a range of materials on offer fair that should mean that anyone who comes in will be able to find something of interest.
Well, that'll be great. And of course, we should probably mention that this fair actually occurs the week before the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair in St. Petersburg, which is an annual event.
By
and this,
design.
and in fact, this harkens back to the days, am I right, Lee, when the Georgia Fair used to be the week before the Florida Fair, or
Well,
the week after,
actually,
or the week after?
Labor Day weekend for a number of years when we were in conjunction with the Decatur AJC.
Oh, okay. I thought the Atlanta show at one time was
Um,
symbiotic with St. Petersburg.
not in the last 20 years.
Okay, I may be wrong
We
then.
had some June ones for several years. We pretty much ran the gamut on dates and locations
Yeah, okay.
and
My-
the length of time that I was associated with it.
That part of my memory may not be clear.
You're just getting older like the rest of us.
But
Yeah,
it was,
yeah.
you are right that we timed the fair to be the week before Florida. So we have our good friend Ron Cozy of Old Editions Bookshop coming from all the way near the Canadian border in Buffalo, and we knew he was going to be down for Florida. And so others are also coming down from the DC area, for example, who are going to come down to our fair, spend the week in Florida. Lovely time to be there, and then do the fair in St. Pete the next week. So that was definitely our design.
I can say partly packed up, we're not.
Yeah, you can, if you're organized, you can have your material for each separate fair and then the stuff that can reach both.
Yeah. Well, great. Well, and just quickly tell us a little bit about Prince Edward Island. This is another example of you venturing off in a direction no one else has ever thought to go, as a promoter from the United States. And then you've got this concept going on in Great Britain, which I actually don't know much about. So tell us about those two events.
They've been a little secretive. We have other fairs throughout the year. So we're doing Indianapolis in April, DC in May, that have been fairs we've done in the past. But then in June, we're doing a first ever event in the UK. So we're taking over Knowsley Hall, which is the house of the Earl and Countess of Derby, a very historic family in the UK, and they live in this. They don't actually live in the Countess of. They don't live in the county of Derby, Derbyshire. They live actually near Liverpool, but they also have a very important book collection, particularly of natural history. And also lots of other material. And so we're gathering for a weekend. We're taking over this stately home in the UK, and there will be book collectors and other people interested in historic preservation coming to stay, to eat, and to really discuss and network around rare books. So that'll be in June. And then in August, we're doing our first ever convention based around our favorite Canadian author, Ellen Montgomery, of course, author of Anne of Green Gables. And then Kevin Sullivan, who made the very famous TV movies in the 1980s, made a whole TV series called Road to Avonlea around this that was on the Disney Channel. And so it finished airing 30 years ago. And so we're bringing the cast from that show to Prince Edward Island, where the show was set. But in conjunction with that, we're also running a rare book fair. So we're going to try and do simultaneously a rare book fair, and then next door a convention around Ellen Montgomery.
Well, that should be exciting. And of course, Montgomery is just one of the great classic writers. Also, years ago, and I wish I had it when I met you, but I had found a rare copy of a signed book of hers. And her signature is just very, very difficult to find. And it's exciting. There's always people who have loved her, but there's
a global following. It was one of the most popular TV shows in Iran. It's obviously huge in Japan, where there's a real fixation around red hair. So we have people coming in from Japan. We have a number of people from Hungary, Belgium, lots of people from different parts of the United States. So it's very exciting.
So you're really showcasing the international flavor of the book is really what's going on here, which is fantastic. And we shouldn't be surprised that people love books all over the world.
And maybe I'll branch out further than Atlanta.
Yes,
But,
yes.
Thank you so much for being with us today. And we are looking forward to the Atlanta Fair so much. I am especially looking forward to it. You know, this
Of
is
course.
branching out for me, and I think it's going to be a delightful weekend. Watch for us on
Facebook,
Facebook,
Twitter,
Instagram,
Instagram.
Twitter. Are we on Twitter?
Yeah.
I don't know whether we are or not.
X. Now we have to call it X.
YouTube. And I think we're easiest to watch on YouTube, personally.
Yes.
We are brought to you through the Florida Antiquarian Book Fair. And we hope that you will follow us leading up to both of these upcoming fairs. And any others that are upcoming, we encourage their promoters to come and talk to us as well, because we like to promote book fairs all over the country. And we've certainly done that. So thank you again for being with us, and we will see you next time.
And
you.
Lee, we're
Go
gonna
ahead.
go. We'll go out to dinner on the company. We'll send Alan the bill. You know, because it's
That sounds like a really
We
good
know some
idea.
nice Michelin star restaurants in Buckhead.
Yeah, I think that sounds like a really good idea. Yeah.
Yeah.
There used to be a Sonic drive-in just about 5 minutes from Oglethorpe, so that
that would be the budget.
I lived about 5 minutes from Oglethorpe when I first graduated from Emory.
Very nice.
That area. So anyway, thanks you for joining this morning, everyone, and for tuning in to Rare Book Cafe, the coffee break edition. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you. Bye.